Hi and welcome to another video update from the Fire Brigades Union, once again here at the Union's head office in Kingston, London. We're joined by General Secretary Matt Wrack to discuss a very important issue which we have touched on previously. That's legislation called the Minimum Service Level Bill. Now Matt, this is very well known anti-trade union legislation that the government is currently pursuing. Obviously it matters to us as trade unionists and as senior officials of the union. But why does this bill matter to members, to FBU members out there?
Well, I think that's a really good question, Tam, and I'd ask members to think about this. We've just had the first half of our pay rise, first year of our pay rise, and we're due another pay rise now in July. And that was after a year of campaigning, ballots to reject 5%, ballot for strike action, then eventually ballot to accept the new offer. And certainly the union's not saying we've resolved pay, we're going to carry on campaigning on pay, and we go into 2024 building for the next year's pay demands and pay settlements for the future. But if we made progress, and we did make progress, we shifted our employers significantly, it was for two things. Well, first of all, we've got what's called collective bargaining. We don't have a pay review body, we sit across the table and negotiate with our employers directly. That's a very important aspect of what we do as a union. Secondly, more importantly, we have the right to strike. It's not something we want to do, but we have that power, and we demonstrated that in the strike ballot, and that clearly had an impact in bringing our employers to the negotiating table and ultimately getting them to shift their position. So that right to strike is absolutely essential to everything that we do as a union, and for every single member of the Fire Brigades Union, and frankly every other union as well. It's absolutely essential to our ability to protect or fight for decent pay, pensions, jobs, conditions at work, safety, all those issues. The right to strike is absolutely essential to that, and that's why this attack is so important.
And it is, just to be clear, it is an outright attack on the ability to have effective strike action, no matter what it's called. Minimum Services Level Bill. It's about attacking our ability to take effective strike action. So what does it actually mean? What powers, for instance, if it gets through, what powers would employers, would the government have on FBU members who have voted to take strike action in the future?
Well, it identifies certain sectors, and the Fire and Rescue Service is one of those sectors, whereby if there were a strike vote, as we had, and we never took strike action, but we voted for a strike, then through various mechanisms the employer, possibly instructed by the government, could issue what is called a work notice, and that is they would set out who is required to work even though they may have voted for a strike. So we voted, say 90% of our members voted for a strike, but the employers would still have the legal right to then instruct certain groups of members, possibly named members, to come in to work regardless of that strike vote. To the degree that we've looked at, for example, some control rooms, there may be, in some cases, 3 people on duty, and it would be likely that all 3 FBU members would be instructed to work regardless of the strike vote. So it's a way of completely seeking to undermine the democratic decision and the democratic rights of FBU members or other unions affected by the legislation.
So just to be clear, FBU members who voted for action, who believe strongly on the issue, and that's why they voted for it, who wish to partake in action, to stand in solidarity with their colleagues, they could be forced to go to work.
Yes, it's absolutely outrageous, and if they didn't comply, they would lose some of the employment rights protections that people who normally go on strike have. That's how draconian this measure is. It is an outrage, it's totally undemocratic, and that's why we need to resist. And you can see why they want to do it. We want a pay rise because of our ability to organise, campaign and take strike action. They don't want that happening again. They want to use this, and this is the key point for members to think about, as a way of attacking our wages and conditions further. That's what lies behind this.
Okay, genuinely appalling and clearly a very serious issue. So, what's the union doing about it? How can members get involved?
Well, this is going through Parliament at the moment, and there have been amendments agreed in the House of Lords, which were some improvements, I suppose, to the bill, but they've now been rejected in the House of Commons because, of course, the government has a big majority in the House of Commons. That's still in that parliamentary process, but it is likely that at some point in the near future that becomes law. It will then be a question of looking at how it is implemented, and we're still doing work around that. But our view, the trade unions have campaigned against it. We are saying to our members and to the wider trade union movement and to the government, we're not going to leave it there. We're going to carry on campaigning against this to build a movement that says you cannot do this to us. It's totally undemocratic. So, for example, within the next year or so, there's going to be a general election. We're saying to political parties, including the Labour Party, you need to absolutely guarantee that this legislation will be scrapped very shortly within the space of a general election. But we need to then build a movement that says we're simply not having it. We are not prepared to see our wages driven down, and we're going to campaign. So I would urge everyone to get involved in that, to follow in the pages of firefighters on the union's website, on Twitter and so on, events we do, rallies, conferences and so on, as we build the movement against this disgraceful legislation.
Matt, thanks very much indeed. Very powerful message there from the FBU General Secretary. For more updates on this huge issue, and indeed on the day-to-day work of the union, you can go to our website, www.fbu.org.uk, or for more immediate updates, why not follow us on Twitter, simply @FBU National. So next time, thanks for joining us, and Matt, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Tam. Thanks, everyone.